Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome friends once again to this module on international trade theories and empirics. We are at the ninth week of our entire sessions. We have been trying to understand foreign exchange market after the understanding from the balance of payment. We all know that balance of payment and foreign exchange market are connected to each other. Now, in the last couple of lectures, I have emphasized about basically what is called BOP and some basics of foreign exchange market. Now, today I will be discussing the very basics, very fundamental aspects of foreign exchange market and how it functions, what are the historical point of its functioning, how Indian foreign exchange market has emerged over time, and why we go by a pegged regime or a fixed exchange regime to a fluctuating exchange regime. So, these are some of the discussions we are going to explore in this particular lecture. Now, I think I have already shown you this chart, but I wanted to emphasize here that I am now in this particular lecture I am explaining some theory of exchange. Then within that we will be also explaining the most important aspect, that is called the clarification behind fixed and fluctuating exchange rate. Now, coming to the understanding of foreign exchange market, as a student or as a participant for this course, I must have certain curiosities regarding the course. First curiosity is that why foreign exchange is being discussed, what is the necessity of foreign exchange and what is its relevance in the news, why it is in the news every other day. It is because of the case that it involves large volume of transactions in every other day market, or in every minutes of the market there are a huge volume of transaction, and it is one of the lucrative section where investor can able to derive huge benefits or profit out of the transactions. So, that is the reason why things are becoming complex, and there are lots of evolution in the policy changes related to foreign exchange market. Now, it is in the news in the very recent times. Now, I think this is the COVID time we are facing, and world over things are getting upside down and even the biggest countries or the developed countries are are also hit hard. In this context, India's stand is very essential, and we simply wanted to mention that rupee has been depreciating day by day, and it is weakening against dollar. That when we all know that when the value of a particular currency in a particular country is depreciating because of the market mechanism, that indicates some problems with the foundation or the stability of its macroeconomic structure. And the macroeconomic structure or the fundamentals of the country, the robustness of the country is in question. So, that is the reason why we are highly concerned because of the continuous depreciation of rupee over the time. Especially in past few months, we have witnessed huge or a continuous fall in this rate. Now, the exchange rate of rupee is actually one of the important marker to compare Indian economy's competitiveness versus other economies given the COVID-19 outbreak. Why COVID-19 has been considered for discussion, because many countries are putting their efforts, their financial allocation to stabilize the disturbances created due to COVID-19. Now, it is interesting to know how much it is allocated, how the fund is allocated for development of the sectors which has been wrecked, and how countries trying to balance its macroeconomic front, but somehow it has been in the picture that our rupee is weakening, and it is a major matter of concern. Now, another measure to compare is looking at the growth rates of our GDP, how the growth rate is occurring. I think in the last two quarters, India has experienced negative growth rate around 23 plus percentage fall, negative minus, basically a minus of 23.9% fall in the growth rate of GDP in the first quarter of this year, which has been a major concern. So, we are also simultaneously looking at the foreign exchange market and its connection with these factors. Now, coming to the the GDP, which has been determined by its core sector, 8 important core sectors including automobile and real estate. I think real estate and its downfall has already been started quite long, but automobiles has especially in the sales of automobiles, we have seen that this is showing a sluggish rate of growth quite some time in between, and this is creating disturbances to the economy and its reflection in foreign exchange market. Now, this is the latest data I collected from the RBI website, Reserve Bank of India website, which is very recent. I think you can mark the mark the date. It is October 23rd, 2020, and the data is from August till September 2020. Now, there are different rates are given. I simply took it from RBI. You can just follow the link and find out the exact further data, and these are on the basis of million US dollar. So, foreign exchange FCY in Indian rupees per Indian rupees is given, how much foreign exchange purchases, how much purchase or how many sold, through which kind of market. This type of market we will discuss in the next class for sure, but spot rate, forward cancel rate, similarly foreign exchange rate, currencies with other currencies as a ratio. Further details you can find it from the RBI website. This is for merchant bank and this is for interbank transactions. Other details are available in that report. So, now I need not analyze more further, only I just wish to mention that there are changes in each of the indicator, and it is actually falling on the average. Now, coming to foreign exchange market, once again which we wanted to emphasize is that it is the market where individuals, firms and banks buy and sell foreign currencies or foreign exchange. So, each have the option to buy and sell foreign currency through or foreign exchange through a proper channel. Now, we are going to count down a historical perspective of Indian foreign exchange market and its evolution over time. We will first divide the entire independent India into 3 parts. First is from 1947 till 1977, that is called the early stage of foreign exchange market, due to the important interpretations. I think these 6-7 slides are going to be very alarming or very intriguing to all of you because of many systematic information. So, basically what I wanted to mention that there has been a shift in India's foreign exchange rate policies over last few decades, especially from a par value system to a basket peg and further to a managed float exchange rate system. So, broadly, if you count down the entire period, it is from a par value system to a basket of peg currencies, then to a managed float exchange rate system. Okay. So, now just to count down within that period from 47 till 1971, India actually followed the par value system packed with certain gold content. So, par value system of the exchange rate initially the rupee external par value was fixed at 4.1 grains of fine gold. Okay. So, initially this is a very important quiz question, not just for this, maybe for UGC NET exam and any other UPSC exam also, UPSC civil service exam as well. So, initially the rupees par value was fixed at 4.15 grains of gold. Later on you can find out that the Reserve Bank maintained the par value of the rupee within the permitted margin of plus minus 1%, using pound sterling as the intervention currency. So, initially it was par value to the grains of gold, then later on a margin of plus minus 1% of the pound sterling was actually used as the value of our rupee, okay, during that period. Now, the devaluation of the rupee in September 1949 and June 1966 in terms of gold resulted in the reduction of the par value of rupee in terms of gold to 2.88 and 1.83 grains of fine gold respectively. Okay. So, the devaluation has actually resulted the par value to a reduction to till the level of 2.88 and 1.83 grains of fine gold from the period 1949 and September 1949 and June 1966. Now, the exchange rate of the rupee remained unchanged between 66 and 71, that is another important aspect to be highlighted. So, that actually remained unchanged because of certain pegging of the currency to a fixed level. Now, since a fixed exchange rate regime was followed from 1966 till 1971, the objective of the exchange control was primarily to regulate the demand for foreign exchange for various purposes within the limits set by the available supply. So, the objective was to set to regulate the demand of foreign exchange market. The Foreign Exchange Regulation Act initially enacted in 1947. This is one of the very important information. The first Foreign Exchange Regulation Act was enacted in 1947 that was placed on a permanent basis in 1957. So, first it was enacted, then it was on permanent basis from 1957 onwards. Coming to the discussion of its connection with Bretton Woods system, I think it has a great connection with the breaking of Bretton Woods system. Those who are not acquainted with Bretton Woods system, let me just give you a backdrop to it. That the Bretton Woods system is basically a place in US, Bretton Woods, where the meeting held to restructure the world economy due to the World War II. Okay. So, 1947 is the benchmark year. From 44 till 47 is very important period where the Bretton Woods actually resulted two very important institutions in the world. They are called International Monetary Fund and World Bank. Initially, World Bank was known as IBRD, but later on it is renamed as World Bank. Now, the main purpose of this Bretton Woods system was to restructure the world economy, especially its macroeconomic stability of the member countries or especially the western countries who were very badly hit due to the world war. Now, but actually with the breakdown of the Bretton Woods system in 1971 and the flotation and the flotation of major currencies, the conduct of exchange rate policy posed a serious challenge to all central banks worldwide. And that is majorly due to some changes. I am just going to let you know right now that currency fluctuation opened tremendous opportunities for market players to trade in currencies in a borderless market. Basically, fluctuations were allowed. Floating exchange regime was about to start, especially in December 1971. The rupee was linked with pound sterling. Due to the Bretton Woods system and its breakdown, the decision was taken to link the rupee to pound sterling in December 1971. Now, since sterling was fixed in terms of US dollar under the Smithsonian Agreement of 1971, the rupee also remains stable against dollar. So, since actually in December 1971 rupee was linked with pound sterling, but pound sterling was actually pegged due to the Smithsonian Agreement of 1971, and with pound sterling was pegged with US dollar because of that agreement. Hence, due to the cross currency relationship, the rupee was remained or rupee remained almost stable against dollar. Now, in order to overcome the weakness associated with single currency peg and to ensure stability of the exchange rate, the rupee with effect from September 1975 was pegged to a basket of currencies in the world. Especially with effect from September 1975, rupee was pegged to a basket of currencies. Okay. So, it is not just pegged or linked to pound sterling or dollar. Now, a basket of currencies was identified where the rupee was linked, especially in 1975. That is one of the important benchmark here, another important information. And that is the end of the first or the early period of the exchange rate market of India. So, second period we wanted to mention that it is called the formative period, where many changes have been identified, especially from 1978 till 1992. Most importantly, the Reserve Bank allows intraday trading in foreign exchange market since 1978. Intraday trading was allowed. So, due to intraday trading, the volume of transaction accelerated, especially from 1978. That is the reason why 78 has been considered in the second period of evolution. And not just that, since currency were pegged with allowed by the bank with other major currencies in the world, a weighted basket of currencies of India's major trading partner were considered. So, it is not just pegged, a weighted basket is also important, but how much weight, which currency by percentage it is averaged for the weight is not kept as open by Reserve Bank because of some fear of wrong speculation. So, and the exchange rate regime was characterized by daily announcement by Reserve Bank of its buying and selling rates to authorized dealers. So, that is another important aspect, especially to authorized dealer, not just to the common public, for undertaking merchant transactions. Now, the spread between buying and the selling rate or rates was 0.5%, and the market began to trade actively within this range. So, that was the buying and selling rates difference was of 0.5%, and the market began to trade actively within that range. So, the authorized dealers who are permitted to trade in the cross currencies across the globe. One convertible for foreign currency versus another, so on the process of that, the cross currencies were actually considered for trading. So, this has led to the adoption of widely different practices and complex relationship in the foreign exchange market that calls for some kind of further guidelines and a comprehensive guidelines for operation of banks engaged in foreign exchange business was actually called for. And accordingly, the guidelines for internal control over foreign exchange business were framed for adoption by the banks in 1981. Now, coming to the discussion about the other guidelines, foreign exchange market in India till the early 1990s, however, remained highly regulated with the restrictions on external transactions, their barriers to entry, low liquidity and high transaction cost. Okay. Last one in this section to mention, especially related to regulation, is that the strict control on foreign exchange transactions through the Foreign Exchange Regulation Act, that is FERA, had resulted in one of the largest and most efficient parallel markets for foreign exchange in the world, that is otherwise called Hawala or unofficial market. Now, since there are lots of restriction created, especially in the latter part of 1980s, and there are lots of strict control on foreign exchange transaction through the FERA Act. So, FERA, Foreign Exchange Regulation Act, I think you might have heard, must have heard about this. That has resulted many other parallel channels. Okay. So, one of the parallel channels of this transaction was due to Hawala market. I think many cases have been identified in India, many were caught due to the Hawala channel. By the late 1980s and the early 1990s, it was recognized that both macroeconomic policy and structural factors had contributed to balance of payment difficulties. Okay. So, over the time then till 1990s, there are macroeconomic and structural factors which has called for the balance of payment difficulties, and a major step were yet to come. Devaluations by Indian competitors had also aggravated the situation. So, devaluation has also resulted further macroeconomic difficulties and the balance of payment deficits. Although exports had recorded a higher growth during the second half of the 1980s, especially from about 4.3% of its GDP in 1987 to 88 to about 5.8% of GDP in the year 1990-91. So, there was an increase, but trade imbalances still persist at around 3% of its GDP, even if export were higher, but there are still trade imbalances due to other heads of the balance of payment, which we have already discussed in our previous lectures. This combined with a precipitous fall in invisible receipt in the form of private remittances, travel and tourism earnings in the year 1991 led to further widening of current account deficit. Okay. So, basically combined with the precipitous fall in the invisible receipt services sector, especially in the form of private sector, private remittances, travel and tourism has resulted further widening of the current account balance. That was the period we are trying to discuss for the for India to take a hard decision on tackling the macroeconomic imbalances through opening up its window to the world and liberalizing the country. The weaknesses in the external sector were accentuated by Gulf crisis in 1991. Okay. So, Gulf crisis has and again come to the discussion. You can put a search on related to the demand and supply of the Middle East countries and their control over the world is another important aspect. As a result, the current account deficit widened due to the Gulf crisis, widened to 3.2% of GDP in 1991, and the capital flow also dried off, necessitating the adoption of exceptional corrective steps. It was against this backdrop that India embarked on stabilization and structural reforms in the early 1990s to make a major decision and to make a balance the country. India took a very hard decision related to stabilization and structural reforms, which was in the very early 1990s. So, that has suggested for us to read with the third phase of foreign exchange market, especially from 1992 onwards. So, 1991 period is considered to be having huge imbalances, and India took concerted efforts in restructuring the economy by taking many structural reform policies. From 92 onwards, India opened up the country and liberalized its economy. That is also called post reform period. And a credible macroeconomic structural and stabilization program encompassing trade, industry, foreign investment, foreign exchange, public finance and financial sector was put in place, creating an environment conducive for the expansion of trade and investment. And as a tabulation measure, a two-step forward, two-step downward exchange rate, a two-step downward exchange rate adjustment by 9% and 11% between July 1 and 3rd 1991 was resorted to counter the massive drawdown in the foreign exchange reserves, to instill confidence among investors and to improve domestic competitiveness. Those steps were taken in 1992 onwards. A two-step adjustment of exchange rate in July 1991 effectively brought to close the regime of a pegged exchange rate. So, that was basically the period brought to the close of the pegged exchange rate, which was followed. Especially after the Gulf crisis in 1991, the broad framework to framework for reforms in the external sector was laid down in the report of the high level committee on balance of payment headed by Professor C. Rangarajan. So, because of the Gulf crisis, C. Rangarajan committee was formed to suggest the balance of the macroeconomic front. Following the recommendations of the committee to move towards the market determined exchange rate, the liberalized exchange rate management system, in short LER MS, was put in place in March 1992, initially involving a dual exchange rate system. Okay. All right. The rate of exchange for conversion of 60% of the proceeds of these transactions was the market rate quoted by the authorized dealers, while the remaining 40% of the proceeds were converted at the Reserve Bank's official rate. Okay. So, there are dual rates exchange rate system. So, 60% and 40%, 60% of the proceeds of the transaction was the market rate quoted by the dealers, and another 40% the proceeds were converted at the Reserve Bank's official rate. So, dealer as well as Reserve Bank official rates are actually mixed to define the exchange rate. So, that is the reason why it is called dual exchange rate system. Okay. The ADs in turn were required to surrender this 40% of their purchase of foreign currencies to the Reserve Bank. So, 40% were actually returned by those authorized dealer. The LER MS was essentially a transactional mechanism, and a downward adjustment in official exchange rate took place in early December 1992, and ultimate convergence of dual rates was made effective from the 1st of March 1993. That has led to the introduction of market determined exchange rate. That is one of the important departure from governed exchange rate to fixed exchange rate to a market determined exchange rate, especially from March 1st 1993. Then the dual exchange rate system, which we have already mentioned, was replaced by a unified exchange rate system, okay, in March 1993, and that is determined by the market. On unification, so unification of exchange rate is one of the major evolution in Indian foreign exchange market. The unification of the exchange rate and the nominal exchange rate of the rupee against both the US dollar as also against a basket of currencies got adjusted lower, which almost nullified the impact of previous inflation differentials. Okay. The unification of the exchange rate of Indian rupee was an important step towards current account convertibility. So, when we start discussing about current account convertibility, the unification of the exchange rate is also important, and this has connection with the CAC or current account convertibility. That was which was finally achieved in August 1994. This is another important quiz question. When India accepted obligations under article 8th of the articles of agreement of the IMF. So, based on the article V3rd or 8th of the agreement of IMF, India could able to successfully go for current account convertibility in August 1994. The reform phase began with the Sudhani committee in 1994, which in its report submitted in 1994 made several recommendations to relax the regulations with a view to vitalizing the foreign exchange market. Last point to be emphasized once again, that in 1997 especially Tarapur committee was constituted under the leadership of Sri S.S. Tarapur. Committee was to evaluate or to examine whether India is ready for current account for capital account convertibility or not. But I think the committee did not give approval for it, and finally it was the case with only current account convertibility till this point. Now, we will discuss these things even in detail in the next class, but still regarding functions of foreign exchange market, transfer purchasing, basically one of the aspect is transfer of purchasing power from one nation to currency to another. It involves demand for currency when tourists visit another country, domestic firm wants to import from other countries, and individuals wants to invest also abroad, whereas just the reverse, like supply of currency arises when foreign tourist expenditure increases and export earnings or through receiving foreign investment. Another function is of the foreign exchange market is to provide credit for foreign transactions. Credit is needed when goods are in transit and to allow the buyers time to resell the goods for the payment. So, that is the reason why credit concept is used, because it consumes time in between the transactions. The foreign exchange also foreign exchange market also provides facilities for hedging and speculation, because since time is involved, because different parties are involved, market is becoming complex, and arbitrageurs are there to bargain for their best benefit. So, it certainly or eventually come across or come through risk, and therefore hedging is important. About 90% of foreign exchange trading reflects purely financial transaction, and only about 10% trade financing. Who are the participants then? Participants are usually the functionaries like tourists, importer, exporters, investors who require currency for their transaction. Participants are maybe commercial banks who are also defined as the clearing houses for the foreign exchange, and the foreign exchange brokers also like arbitrager, the clearing house, they are the clearing house for surpluses and shortages between commercial banks. Then central bank also another party or the participants. Central banks are the buyers or seller of last resort in the foreign exchange market. As a conceptual clarity, I think we will repeatedly give this aspect, and let us, there are two currencies, one is domestic currency, another is called foreign currency. The foreign exchange in nominal terms is defined as R is equal to the domestic currency divided by foreign currency. How many currency can be purchased? Currency of Indian rupees can be purchased with one foreign currency. The standard currency yet considered is dollar, and if R equal to 1, that means the purchasing power is equivalent in both the currencies. The purchasing extent or the one is equivalent to another currency. Similarly, under flexible exchange rate system, R is determined by the interaction of market demand and supply curves for dollar. Depreciation occurs when there is a fall in due to the market interaction, in fall in the exchange rate, fall in the exchange rate, or it is called increase in the domestic price of the foreign currency. That is called depreciation. When between dollar and euro, if you compare, dollar price of euro increases from 1 to 1.5, the dollar has depreciated. Okay. Similarly, the reverse is true for appreciation. You can just go through, we will repeatedly say in different lectures for sure, and these are all clarification in this lecture. We will discuss types in the next class. Okay. So, hope you have understood and enjoyed the class. Thank you.